Alright guys, the other day I uploaded, as I always try to do, a video having a look at the most recent Asphalt Legends update patch notes, where I had a look into all the content of this update and whatnot. The thing is that right as I was reading the comments, I started stumbling across people asking me if I still found this game entertaining or worthy of my time and money, and obviously I answered them that my main goal on this game was to max out all the cars within my garage, and then and only then I would start thinking about if it was worth it or not. But then, I started giving a spin about it, and I came to the conclusion that after basically 7 years of playing this game, we have reached the right time to speak about how worthy it is to play Asphalt Legends on Big 2025. So with nothing else to add, let's get into it. I have always thought that the perspective on this game depends on your game progression, because I think we all can agree with the fact that I don't interact with the game the same way with my progress compared with someone who has been playing for a couple of days. The struggles and the priorities are completely different, basically because I have basically all the 300 cars within this game completely maxed out and a newcomer doesn't. So after this brief introduction, I will explain why I have said this. I will structure this video on 3 separate chapters. The first one will be if Asphalt Legends is worth the time of someone who has just downloaded the game and thus, has zero progress. The second chapter will be about how worth it is to play for someone who has been playing for a while and already has a somewhat sizable progress. And at last but not least, I will talk about those few players who, as I do, own most of the cars completely maxed out, and all what they are looking forward is new cars to max as well. And of course, up to what point is it worth to keep feeding the loop as a player with a basically completed game. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's say you have never heard of Asphalt Legends before. You are a newcomer who may have even seen this video as their first step into Asphalt Legends experience. Or who knows, maybe you are someone who has never played Asphalt Legends but maybe have seen some of the promotions and collaboration of this game and you want to give it a try. Either way, if you are a newcomer, you might have felt surprised of the graphics this game has, and I have to admit that it's literally one of the best looking racing games available on mobile devices. That's definitely true. If you decided to try it on a computer or even a console, you will be even more surprised, since that's where the most brutal jump in terms of graphics takes place. However, as beautiful and attractive the graphics and gameplay may look like, well, for as long as you turn off the toast drive, that is, I would rather recommend you to take both of them as some sort of warning. Such beauty is not backed by an extremely free-to-play friendly experience, but you will understand that within the first few hours of gameplay anyways, so let me be clear. Despite you won't be able to obtain the best of the best cars of the entire game for free, if you play on a daily basis, as I have explained on my guides, eventually your dedication will pay back, giving you the fairly useful cars that will allow you to entertain yourself for quite a while, for as long as you keep it casual. This game is made, like many other free-to-play games, to draw you into the temptation of the new best thing, and if you are not interested in dumping money into live service games, you might get frustrated real quick, even feeling as if you are progressing way slower than you used to unless you pay. But right as I said, this is the part where the ifs come to play. If you are looking for a game to play in a casual way without seeking to constantly get the best and the newest stuff, you might genuinely enjoy this game more than I ever could, for real. Because as you might have guessed, I am not that kind of person, but it is what it is. This game offers the chance for casual players to have some entertainment and fun with great graphics, albeit that depends more on your device than the game itself. However, if you try to go farther than you should, you will likely find the cold stone of the usual paywalls present within this kind of games. But now let's say you are an intermediate player. You have been playing this game for around a year, and after following the community advices from guides on YouTube, like for example the ones you have included within this video description, you have spent your resources wisely and you have obtained some frankly amazing cars in most of the classes within this game. You now are able to mostly compete through all the different game modes within this game, and if it's true that you might get beaten by players who paid way more money than you ever did on their cars, you still win many races and you have fun, despite at this point the amount of fun is not the exact same And now your perspective of the game is way more mathematical. You have to keep tracks of the events in order to not to miss rewards, you play in order to make sure you hold decent positions on the leaderboards, and you plan ahead with months of advance in order to save up tokens to spend on upcoming events that might feature better and more helpful cars than the one you currently have. You might have made some purchases here and there just to improve the experience from time to time. At this point, I would say that it's a 50-50 thing to consider if the game is worth it or not. Some people reach this level earlier because they have spent way more time into the game, and around this time they burn out and realize it's straight up way too frustrating. There are not enough credits to upgrade a car, prices keeping you away from progressing are too huge, the game clearly favors those who spend more than you do, which by the way beat you with the best cars of the game on multiplayer, which oftentimes are the hardest cars to unlock, or the most expensive ones, costing an amount of real life money you definitely don't consider worth of a free to download game, which makes perfect sense. Meanwhile, the other kind of intermediate players progress a bit slower but don't feel said frustrations as much because from time to time Asphalt Legends release special events that are straight up designed to give free cards, as it's the case of Special Hands. This provides many intermediate players with motivation to keep holding to the game, which combined with patience and proper resource management eventually provides them with way stronger cards. Being as patient as this scenario requires is straight up nonsensical for many people who don't think a game should look as much as a job as this game sometimes look like, and this is why some intermediate players decide to quit, since from their perspective it's just not worth it. And that's good, because without the huge investment this kind of game requires, the quick flow of rewards slows down and game might feel stale or just boring sometimes. So at this point it's definitely not that worth it, because it's no longer as entertaining as it was compared to the early days, precisely because it's at this point where unless you are patient enough, they will try their hardest to make you spend real money, making you think about how much time you have spent on your game progression. At last but not least, I actually think this is the smallest demographic of all the people watching this video, but is it worth to keep playing Asphalt Legends as a well kind of player, as someone who has, well over 250 cars, many of them the best of their classes, and also as someone who has spent significantly more real money than the rest of the players? Well, here there is no 50-50 thing, nor any kind of doubt whatsoever. At this point, or at least for me, since I have never seen a player with a progress like mine making this kind of videos, only people who played for like a few months at best, the game is like the closest thing you could get to a really expensive old console with a bunch of games inside and absolutely everything unlocked. I have all the cars completely upgraded, enough tokens to max most of the upcoming cars for basically the next 2 years, and same goes with the credits. The game is worth it in the way that I can mindlessly play as much as I want without any kind of limit and without the rush of aiming for upcoming cars, since I have the certainty that I will have them maxed out in the future. However, for a normal, sane person, at this point it's definitely not worth it, precisely because of how I achieved this point of quote-unquote doing whatever I want without any limit. This is by spending an absolutely ridiculous amount of money for a game you can't download basically for free. However, this is mostly a preference on each player. In my case, I don't think it was a poorly used money, since I had a lot of fun and entertainment up to this day. But yeah, the path to reach this peak is, as most of you guys can agree, completely not worth it. In the grand scheme of things, for as long as you take this game the casual way, you can be entertained for quite a while inside of this game, and I don't really think that's what matters the most. For example, in my case, with all my garage and all my things, all the frustrations I had within this game came as a result of how the company sometimes treats the player base and the balance inside of the game. Not because of direct threats to me or my progress, since my way of progressing barely is interrupted by the changes Gameloft make. However, that's why I raise my voice whenever Gameloft mess up something, because I pay to maintain a game where I can enjoy my progress along with people who might not pay but still want to be entertained as I am. So that was basically it, guys. I have tried to reflect as best as I could the different perspective most of the games within this game have, and I do really hope it helped you to decide if Asphalt Legends is worth your time and maybe a bit of your money on this year 2025, and quite likely 2026 as well. If you like this video, let me know in the comment section, make sure to drop your like, and I will see you really soon as usual with much more Asphalt content. Goodbye guys!